Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Kaufman. Welcome to our 301st installment in the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Lech Lecha, all about Avram Avinu. And Avram Avinu leaves Ur Kasdim, right? Avram Avinu goes to Canaan, and Sarah's wife is taken. Then he goes back on his return to the land of Israel. He and Lot, his nephew, they part ways, so to speak, and then he goes to war to save Lot, right? Lot gets taken hostage, or is taken captive, so to speak. Then you got God's reassurance to him. You have the whole story of Hagar, the covenant of the parts. I mean, a lot of interesting things here. Here the Torah says, chapter 15, verse 7, God said to him, I, Hashem, brought you out of Ur Kasdim, and I give you the land to inherit it. Right? So here God's saying, they took Avram out. He took Avram out, right, from Ur Kasdim, and what did he do? Right, he brought him out, right, he took him out. So says my Rebbe, I'm rather going to Mushta should be well, brings down in, it's commentary on Chumash, Chochmah V'das, and he says like this, so he took him out of the fiery furnace, right, or Kasdim, one of the trials that Abraham goes through, right? They were thrown into a fiery furnace, right? But interesting, Avram himself was prepared to get burnt. He was prepared to die in order that he shouldn't transgress idolatry, right? Very interesting. Comes on the Rambam. The Rambam says in the Laws of Kings, Ben Noach, a Noahite, is not obligated to give up his life to stop from doing idolatry, right? That doesn't apply. Right? In general, there are many things a non-Jew not allowed to give up their life for. Sanctification of God's name is really done by Jews, not by non-Jews. Regardless, he asked the question. In other words, if he wasn't Jewish and he had the status of a Ben Noach, he had the status of a Noahite, how could it be? How could he be? He's got an obligation to give up his life in order not to do idolatry. So it comes on the Rambam. Another place in the laws of Yisodei Torah, the foundation of Torah. The Rambam says there explicitly, forbidden, right? A non-Jew is not allowed to give up his life over here, right? In such a case. So if that's true, why did he do it? How's he allowed to do it? Even though God saved him, okay, but how's he allowed to do it? Right? The Rambam himself says forbidden. So there's the Muki Yosef, one of the great early commentators. The Muki Yosef in the 6th chapter of Sanhedrin, where this is brought down about self-sacrifice, right? Giving up your life here. And he says, really, there's no obligation, right? 100%, that there's no obligation. That there's no obligation over here to give up your life. But if the generation itself needs it, in other words, the person has to do something in order for the sake of that generation, because generation is, very weak and all that. The person can give up his life even on a positive command in the Torah, right? He'd have an obligation to give up his life. So, let's say a person lives in a generation where, they're in a place that's trying to get them not to keep Torah mitzvahs. And if they keep Torah mitzvahs, they're liable for death penalty. They're liable to be killed. You saw that in Russia, right? In the former Soviet Union, people would do circumcision to their kids, even the threat of death, right? Unbelievable self-sacrifice. But it could be, he says, even in places where that's needed, a person can do it. Maybe that generation needs it, maybe. Right? It could be even something, a positive command, let's say. Then there's a mitzvah to sanctify God's name. So over here, even if you want to say he's exempt, right? Let's say he'd be exempt, he wouldn't have to. But the self-sacrifice over here, what did it do? It knocked Nimrod right out of the picture. Nimrod's a big king, big, powerful king, and he's forcing people to do idolatry. So what did he do? Abraham says, no bowing. So Nimrod says, okay, I'm going to throw him in a fiery furnace. God saved him, made Nimrod look pretty bad over here. So therefore, it's permissible. Not only that, it's big mitzvah. Right? Could be. There's certain times you're obligated to do that. Now, Rabbi here says also, what happened to Haran? His brother is also willing to self-sacrifice. But he got burnt. He himself got burnt. He says that's different. First of all, it wasn't holding where Avram was. Avram was a Nazi. Avram was was a prince over here. Similar to a king. So his influence was much greater. So therefore, in such a case, he would be permitted to give up his life. And for him, it wouldn't be a mitzvah. And therefore, he wasn't saved. Very interesting. Very interesting over here. That Avram's on a great level, as we understand. And the Rambam says, really forbidden. Forbidden to give up your life where you don't have to. In this case, 100% he didn't have to. Right? It's got the status of a Noahide. So it's forbidden. But sometimes things need to be done. Sometimes there needs to be self-sacrifice. And through that self-sacrifice makes a big Kiddush Hashem. A big sanctification of God's name. Even for something you wouldn't necessarily have to give up your life. Someone's going to say, don't we always say that someone who does such a thing, they give up their life where they don't have to, right? So a non-Jew in this case gave up his life where he didn't have to, right? It's Mavados Nafsho Badas, suicide. Seemingly, it is suicide over here. So if that's the case, if that's the case over here, it should be allowed to, right? It should be forbidden. So in this case, it depends. It depends on the circumstances. If the generation is a very weak generation, needs it, then you'd be allowed to. And you have to be on the level to do it. And if you're not on the level to do it, you see what Haran did. Haran was killed. Right? I mean, we could answer it very simply. Rashi says that, that why was Haran killed? Because it wasn't clear like Avram. He said, well, if Avram gets saved, I'll jump in. If Avram dies, I'll say, no, I'm not with him. So he's like wishy-washy, in that sense, right? That you can easily answer up, right? But he's telling you the different answer. Avram was much greater. Avram's considered a prince, right? Really, almost like a king in many ways, right? So he's a much higher level. He's got much greater influence. So if he's got greater influence, so that's what he should do. Haran, not on that level. Right? Certainly not on that level. So, he wanted to give up his life. And he didn't have protection. He didn't have the same protection that Avram had. Right? So, it's very interesting here that, I hear a lot, by non-Jews, the process of conversion, people say, yeah, I'd be willing to sacrifice. I'll give up my life for Torah. So I always say that applies to Jews. Doesn't apply to non-Jews. Right? Now, it's a technical issue. Because we learn it out from a verse that says that the Jewish people sanctify themselves. Right? In front of God. What does sanctification mean over there for them? It means Jews have an obligation to give up their lives sometimes. They might have an obligation. I mean, they do have an obligation in certain cases, right, to give up their life. Doesn't apply to non-Jews, right? It's a technical issue over here, right? But a non-Jew over here, like Avram, right, wasn't considered a Jew. Even if you tell me he really kept the Torah before it was given, whatever that means. Right? For the most part, he wasn't Jewish. Right? Person becomes Jewish, what happened to Mount Sinai? But in the end, because of his because of his stature, and because of the generation needed it, so very good. So what does that tell us today? What does that tell us today? What it tells us is that, yeah, we understand God's in control. We don't always understand. We don't always understand what's going on and why things happen. Many times, we don't understand. But God forbid, and it could happen, person put in a position where Torah comes first, and the Torah always comes first. So, person put in a position where you're obligated to give up your life. That's what you have to do. Is anyone looking to die early? Let's say no. But if it comes to that, kiss the cross or die. You have to die. Kill someone or we're going to kill you. You have to die. Right? There's certain things, even if it's only, my Rebbe here says, a positive command. Sometimes the generation needs it. Right? Or they're trying to shmad you up. They're trying to make Jews into non-Jews, not allow them to keep Torah, like what happened, we said before, like what happened in Russia, right? In the former Soviet Union. So that, that being the case, what do I see over here? Now, there are times you have to. There are times 100% you would have to give up your life. So Rabbi Akiva was bothered by this. Rabbi Akiva, his whole life, he said, the end of the Gemara in Brachos, right? It says that his whole life, he's waiting to give up his life. Because it says, we say in the Shema, we say, V'ahavta Shema Elokecha, kol vavcha, kol nafshecha, kol meyodecha. We say that you're going to love the Lord your God, all your heart, all your soul, and all your might, or all your strength, or all your money. But it says, Rabbi Akiva, all your soul means for waiting in my whole life, as he's giving over this sermon to his students before he died. He's caught by the Romans. He said, I've been waiting the whole time to give up my life for the sake of heaven. Right now, without going into all the details, very interesting. Not everyone agrees. Who's allowed to wait to give up my life? Right, that's the essence of what I want. No. But Rabbi Akiva was saying that his father, he wanted to die. Kiddush Hashem. He wanted to die, sanctifying God's name. It's a very high level. Now, for everybody else not on that level, Jews have an obligation to give up their life when they have to. When all is said and done, that's what they have to do. Very good. But not that I'm waiting to do it, necessarily. We'll do it because that's the halacha. Bow down to the cross or die, you have to die. That is what the halacha says. You have to give up your life. But Rebbe is pointing out there are times you might have to give up your life, even if it generally wouldn't, because at that time, the generation needs strength. So since the generation needs strength, the person can do that. It's not called suicide. That wouldn't be called suicide. So if a person's on a higher level, so in general, things apply to them that won't necessarily apply to other people. So you're going to say, what happened to Rabbi Akiva? Why did he die? In such a way. So the greater the person, you make a small mistake, it could be crucial. You want to get close to the king, you get burnt over here. Now, what does that mean in general? It means that the more connection we have to God, the more we want to go on the right path, at whatever level, now God deals with us differently. But you see, Rabbi Akiva was different in general. Rabbi Akiva wanted to live his life according to Midas Hadin. He wanted to lead his life according to the strict judgment. Very few people can live that way. Rabbi Akiva wanted to live that way. Yaakov Avinu, right? Yaakov himself also wanted to live his life that way. And you see, look what the difficult life he had. He had a very hard life, very, very hard life. So there are individuals in the world that want to take that on. They want to live according to strict justice. It's very hard. So for them, even something very minor, which for most people wouldn't necessarily even be a sin, for them the ramifications, could be death. Could be, very gruesome death. Because even when he's giving the sermon, Rabbi Akiva, and he's having his skin flayed, so to speak. And, students are asking, Ad Khan, Rabbi Ad Khan, this is what it means? This is what the verse means? He says, yeah. He went through this whole story, he's being killed. And then right before he's killed, he says, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And then he died. And so the Gemara says, Rabbi Akiva, Muchin, Lo'olam Haba. It's welcome in the next one. It's very high level. Right? Very, very high level. For us little people here. So, we're going to take this in stride. We have to realize, it's a God. He runs the world. He's in charge. And there are times that, we don't want to go through it. We don't have to live it, but push comes to shove. That's what happens. We're in a situation, kiss the cross or die. You have to be willing to die. A Jew has to be willing to die. Now, what happens if you don't? You want to save yourself. So you transgress the Torah prohibition. Not that penalty, but you transgress the Torah prohibition. And that Torah prohibition is you should sanctify God's name. I heard from Rabbi Akiva that should be well, said this many years ago, that this generation, we're not going to have that in Zion. We're not going to have that test. Why? Who's going to pass it? How many people could really pass it? So God's not going to put you in a test you can't handle. Right? But if God forbid, we'd have that test. God forbid we would have that test. You got to be willing to die as a Jew. But you see, maybe in some cases, a non-Jew may also have to give up their life. Maybe. Even though the Rambam and others seem to say not that way. It could be specific cases, right? I don't want to be misquoted here. Specific cases that could be. Okay. Right? This is a specific case. But in general, right? This would apply to Jews, right? It shouldn't necessarily apply to non-Jews. But, the point for us to take over here is, how much we have to uphold the Torah, how much we have to keep it, how much we have to work hard, in order to do it. That's our obligation. That 100% is our obligation. Right? So, we have to keep that in mind. No matter what, I have to keep the Torah, even if it's hard. Even at the threat of death. You say, I can't put myself in danger. Right? Circumcision, pretty important. What are you going to say? I'm not going to do it. It's unbelievable self-sacrifice. Right? And what people, did in the former Soviet Union, unbelievable. Totally unbelievable. Right? So that's needed by threat of death. Because they're trying to uproot Torah altogether. So circumcision is a big thing. But in general, even for smaller mitzvahs, you have to give up your life to keep. Why? Because they're trying to ruin you. They're trying to get rid of your Judaism. So, the Torah itself has to be upheld even in the most difficult situations. So I want to remind everyone, I give a class on duties of heart every Tuesday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 2 Q&As, Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern time, 5 o'clock Israel time. Pirkei Avos, Ethics for Fathers, every Saturday, 2 o'clock Eastern time, 9 o'clock Israel time. Book of Leviticus, chapter 17, every Sunday, 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. And I have conversion classes. Anyone interested in any of this, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism on YouTube. You can send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBIChaimCoffman @gmail.com.